The sun was a hammer. It beat down on the golden desert. The heat made the air wobble and shimmer. 4 cars stood waiting. They were not just any cars. They were legends. A brilliant red Ferrari SF90 looked ready to pounce. Its lines were sharp and aggressive. Beside it, a bright orange Lamborghini Aventador sat low and wide. It looked like a spaceship that had landed from another world. Next, a sleek silver Porsche 911 Turbo S. It looked calm. But we all know what a 911 can do. It's always the quiet ones you have to watch. These cars were monsters of engineering, waiting impatiently for the signal that would unleash their fury upon the unsuspecting emptiness of the vast open desert. Then, there was the Bugatti, a deep blue Chiron. It was the king, the big one. It had more power than a small town. Its massive engine was a sleeping giant, its 16 cylinders just waiting to roar to life and consume the horizon. The heat rose from the tarmac in waves, distorting the shapes of these incredible machines. You could almost feel the tension in the air. It was thicker than the desert heat. Each car was a masterpiece of speed and design. They were lined up on a lonely stretch of road that cut through the endless dunes. This wasn't just a race, it was a battle of gods, a contest of pure, unadulterated power and mechanical brilliance. The drivers sat inside, their faces were hidden behind helmets. You could feel their focus. Their hands rested lightly on the steering wheels. Their feet hovered over the pedals. They were ready. The only sound was the low hum of their electronics and the whisper of the desert wind. It was the calm before a very, very loud storm. A flag girl stood in front of them, holding a green flag. The silence was heavy. It was a silence filled with the promise of explosive noise and incredible speed. The whole scene felt like a painting, a frozen moment of pure potential energy, just waiting for the kinetic release that would shatter the peace of the desert forever. The air itself seemed to hold its breath. A single bead of sweat might have rolled down a driver's brow, but inside those cockpits there was only cool, calculated readiness. The cars gleamed under the relentless sun, their paintwork like polished jewels against the pale sand. This was it, the ultimate test. 4 of the fastest cars on the planet, a straight line into the shimmering horizon and a whole lot of sand. What could possibly go wrong? The anticipation was electric, a palpable force that seemed to charge the very air around the starting line, promising a spectacle of raw power unlike any other. The flag dropped, and the world exploded. All 4 cars launched forward with a scream of tortured rubber and roaring engines. The sound was biblical, a wave of noise that blasted across the dunes. The Chiron, with its all-wheel drive, just dug in and vanished. The Porsche was right with it, a silver bullet firing into the distance. The Ferrari and the Lamborghini were a riot of noise and wheel spin, fighting for grip before they too shot forward like rockets. The initial launch was a brutal display of force, a testament to the incredible power each machine held within its metallic heart, instantly transforming the still desert into a theater of war. They left the road behind. Now, it was open desert. Huge plumes of golden sand erupted behind each car, trailing them like giant tails. The noise was deafening. The V12 of the Aventador shrieked, a high-pitched cry of pure Italian passion. The Ferrari's hybrid V8 roared with a different, more technical anger. But the Bugatti's W16 engine was something else entirely. It was a deep, thundering bellow. It sounded like the world was ending. The Porsche's Flat 6 was a frantic, buzzing howl, a relentless sound that promised it would never give up no matter the odds against it. The cars slid and danced across the sand. It was a beautiful, chaotic ballet. The drivers were fighting their steering wheels, making tiny corrections every millisecond. They weren't just driving. They were taming wild beasts. The Lamborghini, always the showman, went sideways around a large dune, kicking up a massive wall of sand that completely blinded the Ferrari behind it. For a moment, the red car disappeared into the golden cloud. It was a dangerous game of high-speed hide-and-seek where one wrong move could lead to a catastrophic and very expensive end. Suddenly, the wind picked up. A sandstorm was brewing on the horizon. The sky turned a dusty orange. The drivers squinted, trying to see through the growing haze. This changed everything. It wasn't just about speed anymore. Now, it was about survival. They had to navigate through blinding conditions, trusting their instincts and the feel of the car beneath them. The race had become a desperate struggle against the elements, a high-stakes gamble where the desert itself had become their most formidable opponent, aiming to swallow them whole. High above, drones followed the action. They were silent observers in the sky, their cameras zoomed in, capturing every incredible detail. From their perspective, the cars looked like tiny, colorful insects scurrying across a vast, sandy canvas. You could see the perfect lines they carved in the dunes and the chaos of the sand clouds they left in their wake. The aerial view showed the sheer scale of the challenge. The desert was huge, and the cars, for all their power, were small specks racing against its immensity. It was a breathtaking sight, a dance of technology and nature playing out below. Down on the ground, things were getting wild. the Porsche used a natural ramp in the sand to launch itself into the air. For a second, all four wheels were off the ground. It landed perfectly, its suspension soaking up the impact, and it gained a vital few meters on the others. Not to be outdone, the Ferrari followed, getting even more air. It came down hard, the front of the car scraping the sand with a loud crunch. An audible gasp could be heard over the engine noise, but the driver kept control, wrestling the prancing horse back into a straight line. The drivers were pushing the limits. The Bugatti and the Lamborghini were now side by side, their wing mirrors almost touching as they powered up the face of a massive dune. It was a duel of titans. The noise of their two engines battling for supremacy was unbelievable. At the crest, they nearly collided. The Lamborghini had to swerve violently, its rear end stepping out in a huge dramatic slide that seemed to last forever. The driver expertly caught it, a masterful piece of car control that avoided certain disaster by mere inches. The sandstorm was closing in, making visibility worse with every second. The world was a swirling vortex of orange and brown. Headlights cut weak beams into the gloom. The drones had to fly lower to keep the cars in sight, their propellers whining against the strengthening wind. This was no longer a race, it was a blind fight for the finish line. Every corner was a guess, every dune a potential trap. The tension was unbearable as each driver pushed on, relying on pure skill and a healthy dose of courage to navigate the treacherous, shifting landscape. They burst out of the sandstorm, the sky ahead was clear again. The finish line, a simple banner stretched between two poles, was visible in the distance. The Bugatti had a slight lead, its immense power having pulled it ahead in the chaos. The Porsche was right on its tail, followed closely by the Ferrari and the Lamborghini. It was a final desperate sprint to the end. The engines screamed at their red lines, the drivers demanding every last bit of performance from their weary machines. This was the final push, the moment when legends would be made. And then, it happened. The ground directly in front of the Bugatti just disappeared. A massive sinkhole had opened up in the desert floor. It was a giant, gaping mouth in the sand, at least 50 meters across. There was no time to stop. The Chiron was heading straight for the abyss at over 150 miles per hour. The driver had a split second to react. Brake? Swerve? It was an impossible choice. The dream finish was turning into an absolute nightmare. A sudden, unexpected twist of fate that threatened to end the race in the most spectacular and terrifying way imaginable. With incredible instinct, the Bugatti driver yanked the wheel to the left. The car went into a huge four-wheel drift, sliding sideways along the very edge of the sinkhole. Sand and rocks cascaded into the darkness below. At the same time, the Porsche driver saw the danger and swerved right, performing a mirror image slide on the opposite edge. For a heart-stopping moment, the two lead cars were sliding in parallel, on the brink of a catastrophic fall, separated by a giant hole in the earth. It was a moment of pure, unscripted drama that no one could have predicted. The Ferrari and Lamborghini, seeing the chaos ahead, had to make their own desperate moves. The Ferrari driver aimed for the narrow strip of solid ground the Bugatti had just left, while the Lamborghini braked hard, its tires digging into the sand, stopping just short of the edge in a cloud of dust. The Bugatti and Porsche slid past the sinkhole, straightened up, and crossed the finish line side by side. Their race to glory transformed into a shared dance with death. They didn't win by being the fastest, they won by surviving the final, shocking plunge.